Welcome everybody to this August session of Workshop Wednesday. Today we're going to be spending our time on a story that I think a lot of you are going to recognize pieces of. We're going to discuss how St. Louis County, Minnesota built the case to move departments off of assigned vehicles and onto a shared motor pool. So joining us today, we're going to have Tanya Korsch. Did I pronounce that right, Tanya?
Kovarsh.
Kovarsh, I'm so sorry. Tanya's has led that effort at her agency. And so I want to thank Tanya for attending today. And she's going to be our guest speaker. So we're going to kick off and get started here. Before we jump into the content, we have just a few quick notes for housekeeping. So this is our monthly opportunity to touch base with y'all. We do record these sessions. They're going to be monitored in the chats, so feel free to drop in any questions that you have, and then Brian and I will follow up with you following this session. We also have our QR code on this page. We would love y'all's feedback about how these sessions go. You'll see the QR code at the beginning of the session, and then the end of the session. Please scan that and let us know what you think about the sessions, if you've got suggestions on topics that we could discuss or should discuss moving forward, or just in general how things are going for you guys. So with that being said, we're going to jump on in.
Very good. Tanya, thank you so much for being here. We're really looking forward to hearing your story. We thought we'd start off with a little maybe quick introduction so you could share kind of who you are and what you do over for St. Louis County, Minnesota.
Hi, everybody from Minnesota. This is Tanya Kovarsh. I'm an Information Specialist 3 with St. Louis County Public Works Motor Pool. I have a background in accounting, and I really love numbers and what they can tell you. I took over the Motor Pool IS3 position through a promotion in 2020. And my predecessor left. She retired mid-implementation and programming of FleetCommander. And I got 5 whole days of training prior to her leaving. So that was fun. And then I led a fully remote go live in 2021 during a COVID shutdown. For the motor pool, I do a variety of tasks. We're an internal service fund, so we do a lot of billing. So I do all the billing. For FleetCommander, I am an administrator, so I'm doing those operations. And then I support the deputy director and the fleet manager in providing reporting and telematics analysis. And I also assist the mechanics in our mechanic shop. I'm doing their payments. I'm helping them with our interface, our Maximo interface that we use to manage our assets. And just personally, I'm a natural problem solver. I personally enjoy change. I look at it as a challenge. I love data. I love preparing all the presentations that the fleet manager gives to the departments. And I find it a unique challenge to learn everything about, whatever we're being presented with so that I can provide valuable input to our department.
That's wonderful. So let me ask you a question. What was that first year actually like trying to learn a brand new job and a brand new system at the same time during shutdown?
Well, I'm very fortunate in that we have an amazing team. So I had a lot of support in my own department and then outside in the just general public works department too. So I had a lot of support. I was very lucky in that manner. I did get 5 days of training, so that was very intense. And the lady that I took over for, she did an excellent job of providing me with written notes on how to do everything. And that's where I really learned to take a problem and work it backwards to solve it because I didn't have anybody to go to with some of the changes that she put in place to get any help. So, but it was COVID. So our organization, most of the employees were working fully remote. There were some of us that were in the office, especially in like the public works department. We were actually in the office. So implementing a new system and learning a new system during a shutdown actually ended up being a benefit because we had so little use. So we were able to identify problems and solve them with really without much impact to the users. If something happened, like, we forgot to program one thing and all of a sudden no cars were available. So we just handed them the keys and we're like, we'll figure it out,
Yeah, I feel like there were some silver linings that kind of popped up during that COVID era for sure. It was definitely a pivot for I think a lot of us in fleet, but also some silver linings that we could adapt with. Great. Well, here's where we're headed today with the discussion we're going to have. We're, going over the old culture St. Louis County used to run its fleet under, how Tanya built a data-driven case for change, the pilot with the assessor's office, the results, the method she used to right-size the pool, and what's still a work in progress. So this is just our outline of what we're going to run through. And so next, Tanya, you've described the old culture at St. Louis County in a pretty memorable way when we previously met. Can you walk us through that?
Sure. So St. Louis County has operated a motor pool since the 1970s. And the way that kind of worked was a department would come to the fleet manager and would state what they needed for vehicles. And the fleet manager would work to provide that. Now, however, the department decided that they needed vehicles. Sometimes it was, I have 5 staff that travel, I need 5 cars. Sometimes it was, I'm the director, I want a car. There's a variety of ways that they went about making the decisioning for needing cars. And in that method, we were really just a provider. We provided whatever they wanted. And the methodology of it kind of was really like a lot of us in fleet have noticed. It was the Oprah effect of cars, where you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. No real utilization discussion at all, or planning went into that kind of thing. And that's how we operated, because that's the only way we knew to operate. We were paper and pen back in those days.
Yeah.
So not a lot of opportunity to even give anybody any feedback. Then we had a legacy homegrown system that again didn't really have it functioned. It was better than paper and pen, but nothing like we began to experience once we converted. And we operate as an internal service fund, so we are not funded. It's very important that our bill outs are accurate, so that we can support our operations.
Yeah, I really like the quote that you have here. Where you say you operated as a provider and not a partner. I think that's definitely a distinction and quite a transition that fleets can make within their agencies.
That being said, though, I do think that a lot of those type of things resonate with, I'm sure, a lot of the people that are in attendance, plus anybody that's watching this. So my follow-up question would be, what happened when you first tried to change that culture? How did that all go?
Yeah. So as you can imagine, having come off of that history of someone would just say and we would just do, and operating strictly as a provider, it was pretty rare for a department really to, other than getting a billing from us, to hear from us at all. So once we got FleetCommander, and we began to learn about the different things that it could provide and the different things we could do and the different things we could monitor and all of the stuff that comes with that, plus just growing our knowledge in how a pool could operate or should operate. We began to meet with departments, and we took a utilization report, and we went into the meeting with our 1-year data that we had out of the system and showed them, what we saw and how we felt like we could work together to better that. And that was, in our eyes, we're looking at it as betterment of the pool. But really, we were asking departments to completely change their culture, right? Just in something they were never used to before coming from us. So those first meetings were pretty tough. A lot of just silence and thanking us for our input, and didn't really have any success with anything other than we did begin to, the fleet manager, began to make those relationships and began to let departments know, here's what we can provide you and what what we're going to kind of go forward and try to do for you as a partner, not a provider.
Yeah. I love that. So walk us through the full timeline. How did this go from that idea to the actual program, from a timeline perspective for you?
Right. So in February of 2021, we fully implemented FleetCommander. And that was most of our staff were working remotely. There were a very limited number of people. We had like a no contact, no travel kind of thing. But in rare cases, there were certain agencies that needed to travel to do their jobs. And so we were still there to support them. So it was very minimal usage. We implemented, um, and we were just really in survival mode. We needed to make sure that our billings were accurate because that's what supports our department.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that whole first year was, teaching ourselves how to use this system, trying to get ready because we knew eventually everybody was going to come back. So we needed to train the rest of the people. And kind of how we did that was with the few people that were using travel, we really got them used to the system and kind of depended on them to teach people as we all came back, as well as, we made some guides and stuff like that. But we really depended on those people that were using it during that first year. And
Buy-in
then we
from
learned
early
it.
users is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the street
Sorry,
credit.
I didn't mean to jump in, but yeah, I mean, that's, homegrown, ground up, kind of get them on board kind of thing.
Yep. And then in 2022, we understood the system a lot more. It was easier to use. I personally understood my job, so I began to be able to see outside of just the survival mode. And I began to learn about reporting and learn things that were important in fleet and things
Mhm.
we should be looking at that we had not looked at before. We only knew what we knew, so this was kind of new.
Mhm.
Um, and that's when I began realizing that the first step is learning about your fleet. So we started to track our assigned vehicles in the mileage that they were actually using versus what we were billing them. And then in 2023, we took those reports that I had originally designed, and we began to give presentations. The fleet manager would give the presentations, and I would be present for any questions, and really just establishing that relationship. But as I said, it was a culture shift. There was a lot of just very silent meetings,
Yeah.
and just starting that early process. So then we didn't give up though. We came back in 2024. Now, we had learned a lot during 2023, and we really were able to identify some underutilized vehicles and even a department that had a lot of underutilized vehicles. So in 2024, we redesigned our presentations. We came back with better presentations, and we continued to go to the departments and have these partnership meetings where we would talk about things. And, we also wanted to know their feedback in ways we
Mhm.
could improve. But we identified the assessor's office as a potential for some change. So we went in to a meeting with them. They were the very last group. And we really did a hard pitch on utilization and how we could better provide services for them in a way that would benefit us all, the whole county,
Mhm.
really. That meeting went great. Went so great that they were like, let's start right now. And so we scrambled a little bit on that. But then in 2024 or 2025, we capitalized off that. Our reports and our presentations are always getting better. The assessor's office, we did really great. That was a win. The beginning, we were doing it in stages. So the first stage was a win, which resulted in an additional stage. We opened a new site. Other departments are starting to realize that there's an advantage to that for everyone, for them, for us. Some other departments made some changes. And in 2026 here, we're continuing the same kind of meetings, the partnerships. Really, we are a partner now to the departments that we serve. And we look at it that way. We serve the people that serve people, and that's important. So we need to make sure that we're meeting their needs so that they can meet the others' needs. And we listen, and we have a lot of meetings. And now we're able to, now that we know the system and they know that we know things about the system, we can get them some reporting that is really valuable to them to do the things that they need to do for like our accountants and things like that, for grants, getting reimbursement back for certain things. They're using our reporting out of that. Plus, we're just continuing on with these conversions and this right sizing, and it's been a really wonderful journey.
Great.
Sounds great. I love the partnership aspect of it, Tanya, how you keep referring to that, because I feel like sometimes when you're implementing a motor pool, you can get a us versus them mentality. So going in with the partnership understanding, I think is just so important and helps you gain that buy-in and helps you get that street credit that you're going for when you got some people rolling on. So I think that's great. In terms of building the cases, though, where did the analysis really begin on that? How did you get that together, and what were some of the proof points that you had?
So, as I said before, we are a internal service fund. So that means we're not funded. We generate revenue through billings. And how we bill is for our assigned vehicles, you're billed for 900 miles a month. Whether you use those 900 or not, you're going to pay for 900 miles. If you go over that 900 miles, then you're going to pay a per mile rate. So that really was what we began to look at for utilization. So what I did was I took a spreadsheet and I created it, and I knew how many miles they were driving because of the system.
Mhm.
And I also knew how many miles we were billing them for because I also do the billing, so I'm pretty well versed in that. And I built a spreadsheet for our entire amount of assigned vehicles, and I got a utilization rate out of that. So that was the very first step in us identifying and seeing the picture of utilization, and then also taking that back to the departments to show them.
So once you've got that utilization, how do you turn that into the actual savings number for that a department can react to?
Right. So a lot of that is knowing our departments, where they're located, where we're located, and identifying areas that we could make effective change in. So this particular vehicle here, this A10977, we could see from our utilization for the whole year that we're tracking that that particular vehicle drove 481 miles in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And we can also tell because we run telematics in our vehicles. So we're able to use reporting to dump that telematics in to then convert that to, okay, we know what you paid because they paid parking and what their vehicles costed. Then we took that 481 miles and we figured out how many days was that actually, and in that day how many miles was that, and then we converted that to, like, we pretended it was a rental and we got a total for that. So as you can see, it was $7,896 total cost for that department to have that one vehicle. If they would have done daily rental instead of assigned, they would have only spent $835.46,
Wow.
leading to a savings for one vehicle of $5,860.54. That's one
Yeah.
vehicle.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's yeah. And that's a great story too. I mean, the numbers, like you said, the numbers kind of tell the story for you.
They really do.
Yeah.
Anything additional that you'd like to add in terms of how the mechanics of that reporting, Tanya, or how you actually built it for other departments or the department as a site-wide department?
So the mechanics of how we actually did it, so out of our telematics device, it runs through Agile. So we
Mhm.
go in, we go and we run this particular report, this pull telematics trip detail. I dump it into Excel. Then I really use Excel to, and you want to, when I'm doing it, I'm matching my date range. So year of utilization, year of trips.
Mhm.
And then this particular group, they were right next to a motor pool. So this car, was an easy one that could potentially go to vehicle sharing. So then using a pivot table, we drop that in, get all that detail, and then you just let Excel do the math for you and drop that all in. And then you have your total. And then it's a very clear report to hand them. Like there's not a whole lot you can dispute about that. Those are all actual factual coming out of how you use the vehicle, reporting it. So it's a great way for them to see the successes they could have.
Absolutely.
I love how you've mapped this out too for us to be able to share that with everybody else as well. I think there's a lot of we talk about doing things, but we're not always sharing with people how we do it. So I really appreciate you breaking this down for folks to see as well. So you gave us the timeline before. How has this approach traveled to other departments beyond the assessor's office?
Yeah, so we meet with all of those departments every year.
Mm-hmm.
And, we talk about the assessors because they were the win, but there were other departments that had small changes along the way too.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, as they looked at their utilization, first, we had to show them what utilization was. We had to talk about it. That's a new concept, right? So that was
Yeah.
a culture change. And there were some small wins along the way that we could take and say, like, oh, this car had, I mean, we had a car that had 4% utilization for the entire year. It's
Yeah.
clearly probably not a car that maybe we really needed to have. And then when we dove further into that with the department, we realized that car was actually right next to where our daily rental was. So the department, they made the decision on their own that they were like, oh, we're going to cut that vehicle. So, there was other departments that had wins. Plus, there was departments that realized the reporting that we can get out of it, like where we download the text file from our billing export and we provide
Mm-hmm.
it to a department's accountants because then they use that to assign all their costs.
Mm-hmm.
Some.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the reports that you actually use, the reports within FleetCommander that you use to drive this. And I understand, like, for some of our other clients that are listening, we'll just kind of put this asterisk statement on this slide here. Some of these reports are only available based on the different modules you have. So the telematics report that you're going to talk about, you have access to that because you use the GPS Insight telematics that links into FleetCommander. And the billing export, you have that because you also have the billing module within FleetCommander. But walk us through these reports.
Yeah, so the billing export was what I first used when I was trying to learn about utilization and trying to realize what our utilization was. So, I basically just took the text file. I deleted out all the daily rentals. So that was Fleet Commander tools, billing export, and then I do the date range. And I did this. I actually didn't start the report right at the beginning of the year because I saved that each month. I was able to just go back and fill in. But I used that to determine my spreadsheet, right? Because it had all of my assets and it had all of the departments already listed there for me. So really, I just dropped in all the months, started filling in those numbers for what they were actually using. And then I just would update. So, and right now I have departments that request that utilization from me monthly. So they're getting it monthly. Um, but it's just constantly update. I constantly am updating it each month to get that, miles driven divided by miles billed to get the utilization. And then how I got some of the when I identified a car that was underutilized and I knew that that car was next to a motor pool and could possibly be a conversion. Then I used the telematics trip detail to Fleet Commander reports telematics trip detail to data dump into Excel all of the trips. And then I further took that and parted it down with a pivot table to tell me what days they were really using it and how many miles. And then I just let the math, and I calculated it out to what it would be if it was a reservation. And there were times that it wasn't in their best interest to move to a daily rental for that
Right.
particular vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
maybe their travel was more than on certain days than it would be if it was assigned. But overall, generally speaking, it's almost always a win for them to do it. There are
Yeah.
a rare few cases, but we don't hide that. You know, if it is in the best
Sure.
interest to do that, that's great. Do that. We're here to help you and provide
Yeah.
for you. You know, by no means are we going to push you into something.
Well, and I think that goes back to your point of partnership.
Exactly.
And also it almost makes the data even that more valid. You know, it's not like you're reviewing 100 vehicles and you're saying 100 vehicles just need to be, moved
Right.
over to fleet or to sharing. It's true data, and you're making the recommendation based off of what the data is saying, not what your hopefully your objective is to get to the motor pool. So I think it's really cool that how that shows that partnership, and the data really speaks for itself.
Yeah, and data-driven decisions, I think, is something that we could all appreciate in today's day and age because it's so readily available. So that's great. That's the way to go about it, in my opinion. So you said you'd started with the assessor's office. Um, that was a real conversion. Why did you go with the assessor's office? And once that was decided, how did that all go for them?
Right, so the very first thing, in keeping that utilization record just for ourselves that first year, it was very obvious to us, vehicles that were underutilized, from our perspective, of course.
Yeah,
And so how we identified it was just doing that tracking. You know, you're repeatedly seeing that percentage being under, what we kind of hope that percentage to be. So now no bad talking about the assessor's office here. They just have a very cyclical schedule
Right.
that they follow
sure,
because of how their department operates. So they tend to have times where they're heavily in the field. And then they have other times where they're not in the field, because they have to meet their deadlines and they're maybe doing more computer work. So they were cyclical. So right there, that kind of identified times where cars aren't moving. And some of those times are during the winter when it's, up here we have some pretty extreme weather. We can get 40 below. And so we identified that, oh, okay, they're not moving when it's super cold, which is going to, of course, on our end, because we have mechanics in a shop,
sure,
that's going to generate service calls, no start calls. It's going to wear on parts more. It's a lot more complaints about the vehicle too. So, there was other factors we identified besides just, the utilization. And then when we looked at their department, and I came from their department, so I knew their department very well. So we looked at where their department was compared to where the motor pool is located. And I believe they have 6 locations. And in 3 of their locations, they were near, or well, 2 of their locations, they were near a motor pool. So it was an easy way to adjust their operations. And then we looked at so the very first one we looked at was our downtown Duluth office, which is literally right across the street from our motor pool. And they actually parked those cars in our motor pool. So that is an easy win right there, right? And we looked at our fleet to make sure that our fleet could handle absorbing their vehicles. So after we presented to them, one thing they did right off the bat was they looked at their utilization and they're like, yep, right off the bat, we're cutting 2 cars. So they cut 2 cars just immediately. They were out. And then they looked at that Duluth office after they had decided, like, yes, we're doing this. And then we showed them the Duluth office and how this should be the first one that, if we're going to do this, that we move to. They had 7 cars. So they turned in the keys. We absorbed those 7 cars. Now, this was a whole new concept for them and us, and we wanted to make sure we proceeded very cautiously. So we actually held on to those cars. They sat in the garage for 5 months until we realized, yep, we can do this. It's working great. And then we stripped them out and sold them. So that was part of that whole process. In 2024, that's what we did with that first one. They actually came to us and challenged us in one of their offices. They were like, hey, we're up here. We're not close enough to your motor pool, but there's other departments up here. So in addition to their department, there was 4 other departments at that location. So they challenged us to put a site in up there. And the deputy director of our department and the fleet manager, they went up to that site with the garage supervisor, and all of us went up there together and we looked at it. And we walked around the site because we thought, yes, this 5 departments, that sounds good. We walked around the site. We're trying to look at a place. Where can we put this? We don't want to put stress on this building. Like the whole county shouldn't be coming in this building, kind of thing. This is where four departments operate, and we happened to walk by a door, and I think it was the fleet manager that said, "Hey, what's that door?" And they said, "Oh, that's an outdoor storage closet. We don't even use it." And I was like, "Oh, can we see it?" And they opened up this door to this outdoor closet. And I was like, "This is it. We can do this." And in partnership with our property management group, who converted an outdoor closet into a kiosk location for us, they put it in heat. They put in lights. They put in
Nice.
a desk. We had
Perfect.
our IT come in and put in infrastructure so we could have the internet and stuff. And boom, we had a satellite operation that was operating out of there. And it's doing really well. And now we serve these 5 departments, and we absorbed those 9 assessor cars through that process. Then that went well also. And what we did in 26 then, they came back again because this is working really well for them. So they're like, "Yeah, we want to keep doing this." And we looked at our Virginia location. Now our Virginia location has a lot of stress on it. It is a very heavily used pool. But we again looked at that vehicle demand report to see if do we have any wiggle room? Are we able to do this? And we still felt we could support the operations by changing them. So we did take the additional cars for there. And that was a huge win. So now we've converted 3 of their offices. We have plans to convert a 4th either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. And then the other 2 offices that they have are located, my county is huge. We go from the Canadian border all the way down to Duluth. So it's huge. And the 2 locations that they are existing in outside of those ones that are by the pool are kind of in locations that we probably wouldn't have a motor pool. There's no real county presence. I mean, there's a county presence there, but just not maybe enough of one where we could justify putting in a motor pool there.
Hmm.
So they'll always have assigned cars, and that's totally okay. We're not trying to fully get rid of assigned cars by any means.
Right.
We just want to convert to vehicle sharing where we can. And in those locations, it worked out great. And it's continuing to work out great. And then as a result of that, we've had other departments, because of course the assessors are very happy with what they're seeing, and we're very happy with what they're doing. So we've had some additional departments go through and really be mindful of that utilization, and they have also changed some of their numbers for assigned vehicles.
I love that transition, that flop that you were able to make, like just a few years ago, you're, begging for just time to present your data to these departments, and they're like, "Oh, what are you talking about? This is crazy." And now you've got them coming to you for, using motor pool and fleet consolidation. And that's just a great story about how you were able to flip the script like that. So let's talk about the results. We've got the numbers here. What's the actual savings to the assessor's office that you've been able to accomplish over this 3-year transition?
Right. So in 2023, they had 30 cars, and they were spending $210,388 on their travel. And again, a lot of those vehicles were incredibly underutilized.
Yeah.
And what we were able to do in these few years now, we've got them down to 7 cars. And
Assigned vehicles.
7 assigned
Okay.
vehicles right now. Otherwise, they do the vehicle sharing with the daily rental.
Right.
And as of June of this year, they've paid us $50,797. So
Wow.
that's realizing a total savings to them so far during this whole conversion process of $132,953. And that's just going to continue to grow. During the summer, they're very active, but come winter, then that's where they're really going to see their huge savings. But they're still seeing savings in the summer, just changing to daily rental.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And that's just the assessors. So
Yeah.
when we're zooming out, what are we looking at for the rest of the county?
Great. So our first step was moving some of the departments off of assigned vehicles to the daily rental. And then also we were looking internally about, we started in 2021 with 151 cars. And as we do this shifting, do we need as many cars? And we're doing that vehicle demand report, and we're talking with our departments. What do you see coming up? Our operations going to maintain the same, trying to plan, making sure we don't go too low. We have been very cautious through the whole conversion. But right now in 2020, in 2025, we cut down to 135 cars. So when you talk about cutting cars, of course, you're no longer buying, for us, our fleet plan, 10 years, 100,000 miles. So every 10 years, I'm no longer buying, well, I was never buying them, but the fleet manager is no longer buying those cars. So we're seeing a savings in the cost of the vehicles. We're also seeing, reduced insurance for those vehicles that we got rid of.
Yeah.
We're not paying to register those vehicles anymore. And then some of the other things that maybe we can't see just visibly, our mechanics actually commented on the fewer jump starts, fewer service calls for those vehicles that really were sitting there, and then they die. It would be very cold, or their tires would go flat because
Yeah.
the snow would drift around the tire and it would be flat. And then also just, the maintenance plans on those vehicles that we no longer have. Those are all savings that don't necessarily translate into dollars. Our biggest one is just going to be the capital expenditure, which, would be every 10 years.
Hmm.
Amazing.
Wow. That's a big number. And when you talk about those soft savings, it's really even bigger than that. That's a great, I keep saying this, but this is just a great story to tell about the impact that your department and using this software can have. So looking at what we've discussed, it looks like it's not just about the assessor's office. What are the other departments that have followed suit with this?
Yeah, so when we put that new site in, safety was one of the departments that was
Hmm.
also at that location. So they had 5 assigned vehicles. And at the time that we put that new site in, one of their vehicles actually broke down and was not fixable. So that was a conversion that took place just simply because we had an unexpected vehicle breakdown. But right now they're down to 3 vehicles. They are at that site, so they're able to use those daily rentals to accommodate their travel needs still. Um, and then our Arrowhead Regional Corrections Department, which is going to be like probation officers, people
Hmm.
that serve the courts kind of thing. In looking at their utilization, early in 2026, they had identified one vehicle that they didn't need anymore, so they got rid of that. And now just recently they identified another one and just got rid of another one. And so those were just straight cuts, just simply because they didn't need that particular type of vehicle anymore. And then our Public Health and Human Services Department, they're kind of going through a lot of change because of the things that are going on in our state and
Hmm.
stuff. But they asked for a review from us, similar to what we had done with the assessors, to identify any potential savings. And through the review, I mean, that is our largest customer. They are traveling a lot. They have a lot of assigned cars and they use a lot of daily rental. But we did identify savings for them of $10,000 also. Now, if they will be able to do it or not, I don't know, because
Yeah.
they do operate in kind of a specialty. Sometimes they're in unmarked vehicles, sometimes they're in marked vehicles. They're also in many different locations besides just around our motor pool. But still, just having those conversations, identifying things that maybe we could do differently, being open to different types of things. There's also some things that we're looking at for them where maybe we could use a managed system to help them better do their utilization.
Hmm.
Um, but overall, you can see like our fleet mix is totally changing.
I love
We
this
had,
graph showing that
yeah,
difference.
yeah. So just to be clear, this isn't all the vehicles in our county. This is just our departments that need travel. So no sheriff in here, no public works, no land department kind of thing.
Yeah.
This is just the departments that are traveling. Um, So we had started with 151 vehicles, with 99 of those vehicles being in an assigned class. And now we're down to 69 assigned vehicles. And then because we opened up that new site, we have
Mhm.
66 daily rental vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, getting down from where you were to, like almost essentially a 50-50 split, and a decreased number. That's a really great stat.
Yeah, that's amazing. That really tells a story there. So, Tanya, in terms of determining once the departments are sharing, how do you decide? I know you said you're very conservative, you got to be careful, but how do you decide how big the pool itself should really be?
Yeah, so that was a question, that we were asking a lot. And we discovered the vehicle demand report, um, which is, we look at the max vehicle column in that vehicle demand report. So we have a few different locations, but we'll pull it per location, and we always run it for a year. And then I exported it into Excel. And then I use a pivot table to take those numbers and to tell me when, what are my biggest numbers? And in some of the locations it's zero, but we look at other we start to see, okay, how many times is this one coming up? Because I not only does it tell me, but it tells me how many times.
Hmm.
So now our organization, we also have personal reimbursement. We have a very generous personal reimbursement process. So priority is given to people that need to have client trips, client travel where they have clients in the car,
Hmm.
or for departments or employees that have to be in a marked car. So priority, we tell people, make those are the people first who should get cars. And then individually, if you're going to a meeting or traveling or something, then we'll go above that. But we have accepted that with 1,500 employees, if there is a county event going on, there will be times that we run out of cars, because not everyone can go rent a car singularly, of course, not riding
Right?
together, and,
Heaven
and
forbid
get
we
to
carpool.
right, and get to the event. We've accepted that we're not going to have 1,500 cars waiting for an event like that.
Right.
So in those cases, that's where, with the department's approval, on their end, that they're approving that vehicle reimbursement, or people are riding together, or we've even encouraged people to, like, load up in the biggest one and all go together kind of thing. But we do have times that we run out, and that is an acceptable way for us to operate, because of that personal reimbursement policy. So when we look at, say, our Duluth motor pool, okay, interestingly enough, right now we have 31 cars there. I have a 30 key box, but I have 31 cars there. So we take our shop truck out and we pull those keys out and we run it. But we look at what they're actually using. Now, we can see, when I pulled the report, I could see that 2 times I needed 25 cars. 2 times in a year I needed 25 cars, and that was my highest one. So now, we've already said that we have times that we're willing to accept that we can't meet your needs, as long as we're meeting the needs of the people who have client transport and need to be in a marked car. So 25 is not going to be the number we look at. We start to look at the next number, or the next couple numbers, because even if 22 happens 3 times, but 17 is happening most of the time. So then we'll pick a number, we come together as a group. The fleet manager is, of course, going to be the final decision maker on that. And we decide with a number that we feel comfortable operating in. And that's where we decide where the fleet can be. And even though maybe we see this 22, we are pretty cautious. We probably would have 23, 24, you know. But still, that's a reduction from 31. And then
Right.
what we would do with that 31 is, because how we operate is, when we get new cars, they go into our daily rental pool. We run them in the daily rental pool, and then as fleet health needs are identified, we transfer out of the pool into the assigned vehicles. So then what we would do in that case is we would just either look at our other pools, see how they're doing. That's the great thing about FleetCommander is we can be so fluid in our sites. If this one has a lot of demand and this one has less demand, we can adjust that. If the next month it's opposite, well, we just move them again, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, yeah, so then we go through and the fleet manager makes those decisions and if we decide to cut, then we turn them out into our assigned pool. Then we take from the assigned pool what we've identified that needs to be replaced and we sell those vehicles.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, something else I want to make sure we discuss. I think this is probably one of the more honest parts of the story. What haven't you guys been able to solve yet? What's next for you?
Yeah, so if on our journey, when we talk about when we first implemented, that was infancy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're in our childhood now. We're learning some things about, and we're learning some things about driver behavior.
Right.
And we're able to pull reporting on that, and that's what we're going to be focusing on next.
Yeah.
So we have people that have the just in case I need a car, I'm going to reserve one.
Yep.
Or the hoarders who reserve it, check it out for a whole day, don't actually use it, never left the garage.
Yep.
And then we also have people that, they book a car and cancel it within, a minute before the checkout time. Or we allow a 30-minute buffer. So, 30 minutes before they're gonna get charged, then they'll
Yep.
cancel it. Now, internally, we don't really have any policies in place yet to handle that type of thing. So for us, the very first thing will be, looking at those behaviors. We've identified them. We're going to have internal policies that act as a guideline on driver behavior for things like that. And then we will make the move to educate our users. And that's where we really see the most change is just when we have open conversations, we educate users, we'll put out, like a little article about it or why we're doing it, why it's important kind of thing. And we educate them. And then we'll watch it for a little bit. And then if we need to, then we'll address specific instances with the person. And if it continues, then we'll loop in their supervisor and remind them gently. We have had cases where we've had to drop like a charge in because of it. So not fueling a vehicle was a very big thing for us. We literally have a site that you have to drive around the gas pumps to get in the building.
Yeah.
So in those cases, we had to drop in a charge. If you don't fuel the vehicle and you leave it on empty or whatever, your department's going to get charged because we need to curb that behavior. There is only 2 mechanics in the building, and so they can't be filling cars all day because people didn't fill them. So they're working on cars. That's important. So that's the way that we're kind of looking at the problems that we're identifying now and how we're hoping to solve them just through education and an internal policy, using telematics to identify those problems, and also the reservation information that you can get.
Right. Yeah. And then also that last little part of the slide, the enhanced reporting that's coming out from our side. And so I feel like part of this is almost a plug for Excel, but some of the benefits that we'll be seeing will be the enhanced reporting. And for the folks that might not be so advanced in Excel, there'll be some tweaks and support from our reporting information that's coming down the pipeline too.
Very valuable stuff.
Yeah. All right. So Tanya, you've mentioned learning from other agencies has shaped a lot of this too, when we were talking and kind of preparing for this ahead of time. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when we first implemented with FleetCommander, one of the things that I did is I went to the FleetCommander website and I looked at everything. I clicked into everything. I read every article. We didn't really have anybody around us close that operates a similar type of pool. So we really had nobody to partner with or get any information from. But
Hmm.
from reading all the stuff, we identified Scott County, which is in our state, as
Hmm.
as somebody that could be a really valuable partner to teach us some things. So we reached out to them, and to the credit of my deputy director and my fleet manager, we all got in the car together and we went to Scott County, and they showed us their system and they showed us what they do, and they talked with us about different things that we asked them, and they increased our knowledge of how to operate so much. We're so grateful to them for everything that they did. So that was, one way that we learned from another FleetCommander user. And then also by attending command, you learn from other people, you hear their stories, things you never
Yeah.
even thought of. But we were at command and Michigan mentioned something about a QR code. And I heard that and I was like, what's that? What do you do with that? And so I asked him, and Scott sent me
Yeah.
information, and we were able to bring it back. And not just uh, we used it to teach our users how to use our fuel systems.
Hmm.
And then we have a safety department that recently just revamped our whole accident procedure, and they put it in a QR code on a keychain,
That's
so
great.
that you're no longer digging through the glove box trying to find it in the 50,000 napkins,
Yep.
paper when you're not already stressed out. So, those ideas that you get from having actual fleet contact with other members is just so important.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I have a selfless plug on this slide about the next user conference, which is going to be in Glendale in November, Glendale, Arizona in November. We've got the link on there, some of the agenda items, but I don't think Brian and I could say it better than you did about the benefits that you get out of the user conference. I mean, yeah, we're the we Agile Fleet, we're there, we're telling you what's going on with the product. We have a lot of really cool stuff to talk about this year. But I still, as a fleet manager, my favorite part is meeting with you guys and other fleet managers and getting to hear what people are doing. And it just it kind of sparks that creative bug, like, gosh, they're doing this over here. How can I apply that in my fleet too? That's my favorite part about the conference.
Yeah, it's great to be surrounded by a community of people that are not in competition with one another. So they're just able to share best practices and watch everybody get better in their own fleets that they're running. So it's just an amazing opportunity. We're really looking forward to it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, on that note, Tanya, we want to thank you. This
Yes,
has
thank you.
been like exactly the kind of story that, reminds us of why we do what we do and why we do this at Agile Fleet. We really appreciate you sharing this with us and with everyone that's on the call today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For everybody else that's listening, if any of this sounds like something that you'd like to dive in and get some more information on, please reach out to Kristen and I. We're here to help. We love to support our clients and this kind of thing. So we're here as a resource for you, and happy to help with anything that we can. So thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. If you guys have an initiative or something that you're being asked for and you're not quite sure, what reports to pull or how to get that out of Fleet Commander, pitch it our way. And we're more than happy to help you solve that problem. So. All right. Well, now we're just in the, closing wrap up stuff. Just some reminders that we have this workshop Wednesday, where, we continue to do these on a monthly cadence every third Wednesday of the month at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a quarterly cadence of best practices, partner spotlights, product updates, and release highlights. You've got the schedule on here for the calendar. We just finished up Partner Spotlight in August. We'll be talking about product updates here in September, what has been released in the most recent releases and what's coming up in the next couple ones. Remember, those are coming out on 2-week iterations. So keep an eye on those notes. Also, all of our Workshop Wednesdays, we're recording these and we have them out on our YouTube channel. You can catch the playlist by scanning that QR code. Kind of back to Tanya's point, when she started out as a new person, she jumped in on the website, just absorbed as much information as possible. Every Workshop Wednesday that we've ever recorded is out there. So there's a lot of sessions about reports. If you want information about reports specifically, Brian and I can get that to you as well and point you in the right direction. But we got everything on there and that QR code to access that directly as well. Also, if you go to our website, there's always a link there too. And then last but not least, our contact information. Again, I'm Kristen. This is Brian. We're also supported by our support team. Their contact information is on here. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 to 7. And then there's also some self-help that we have available to you. There's a link for our FC Drive. There's how-to videos, quick reference information there. And we do also have a new chat bot that can help answer questions. It's not replacing our support team by any means. Those guys are always going to be there. They're not going anywhere. But if you've got a question or just a quick, how do I do this? Or it's 10 o'clock at night. I don't know why you're working at 10 o'clock at night. I know why I am, but I don't know why you might be. But if you are, the chatbot can help you out. And last but not least, we really value your feedback. So again, we had that QR code at the beginning of the deck. We got it here at the end to just give us our feedback. Give us your feedback. Let us know what you think. And if you've got recommendations, Tanya, thank you again.
Thank you so much.